Alright, so here it is, Ninja 300. First thing first, I would like to thank every single one of you that subscribed to me from my last video. We got an astonishing 11 subscribers. Thank you. I would have never thought that we would reach such a high number in such a short amount of time. 11 freaking subscribers. That's amazing. So here it is, I'm bringing you another review of another motorcycle, and today we'll be doing the Ninja 300. When you're comparing this bike to any other 300cc motorcycle, it comes out to be the heaviest one of them all. But once you get up to speed, you don't feel any of that. This thing has 34.5 horsepower and super high redline at about 13,000 RPM, which makes this bike more sport oriented. When you're comparing this bike to something like Yamaha R3, you can definitely tell that it's more sport oriented because of the riding position, that you're a little bit leaned over, and you get most of your power in the top RPM range, around 8.5 to 13,000. Whereas Yamaha R3, the power band is mostly all the way through the whole RPM range. Looks wise, this is in my opinion, one of the best looking 300s out there, especially this color. I don't know what it's called, but it looks good. This bike gets a lot of looks because it looks like a 600 or even a 1000cc motorcycle. From far away, you would never be able to tell if it's a ZX6R or it's a Ninja 300. They look really identical, and that's really good for Ninja 300 owners, but not so good for ZX6R owners, because their bike will look like a Ninja 300, but Ninja 300 owners, their bike will look like a Ninja ZX6R. When you go to the gas station, people will come up to you and be like, "Oh, can I clean your windshield?" And I'll be like, "Okay."
Mind if I give your windshield a quick clean?
Yeah, sure.
No worries, man.
Thank you very much. True story, by the way. Let me start off by talking about the dash, because that's what probably all you 16-year-olds will care about when you're buying this bike. This dash looks like complete crap. Oh, come on, man. This bike was made in 2013. They didn't have the technology to make their dash look cool. That's complete bullshit. They could have done something much cooler than this, like one arrow going horizontally. Look at Yamaha R3. That thing has an amazing looking dash, and I know it's 2 years newer, but I'm pretty sure they could have made something like that in 2013 as well. This dash doesn't have a gear indicator, and in my opinion that's actually a good thing, because it helps new riders to actually look up and not look down onto the dash, which makes it much safer for you to ride. It really helps you to get familiar with your bike. You'll be able to learn all of your RPM ranges and where everything is at. If you're going around 100 kilometers and you can see that your RPM is around 7,000, you'll know that you're in 6th gear. And that goes for every single gear, so you don't really need a gear indicator. Let's move on to the mirrors. Mirrors are utter garbage. You can't see anything out of them. I'm a pretty skinny guy. I don't really have wide shoulders, and all I see is my arms and shoulders out of the mirrors. So if I want to see something, I really have to lean over and move my arm just to see anything. But they are very functional. When you're parking, you can fold the mirrors in, which helps to prevent damage from other cars. You can also fold the mirrors out for some reason. I have no idea why. You can make your bike look like a bull or a bug of some sort, if that floats your boat. The throttle is not very good. Like, you see this? You see all that? It has so much wiggle, it's pretty freaking annoying. Whatever. When you get on the throttle, in the lower gear, the bike jerks very violently, even if you pull it a little bit. I don't really like that. And when you release the throttle, it really jerks forward, especially with all the engine braking that these 300cc motorcycles have. Once you get up to a higher gear, it will be completely fine. But like in lower gear, anywhere from 1st to 3rd, it really jerks you back and forth. Onto the brakes. People say that this bike has one of the worst brakes out of all the 300cc motorcycles. And I completely disagree with that. Because on these bikes, you don't even need to use the brakes. All you need to do is just let off the throttle, and you'll probably come to a complete stop in around 5 seconds. This bike has so much engine braking, it's freaking ridiculous. The good thing about that though is it really saves the wear on your brakes. You will probably never have to change them, because most of the braking is done by engine braking. Onto the clutch. This clutch is freaking amazing. It's better than any other motorcycle clutch I've ever used. It's super light. It's in one finger, no problem. And it's really smooth as well. Even if you release your clutch really quickly, the bike won't jerk at all. It's freaking amazing. Way more smoother than any other clutch I used. And it's really friendly for beginner riders, because this bike has something that is called slipper clutch that prevents the rear wheel from locking up when you shift down at a really high RPM. Also, another thing, this is my first motorcycle I ever got, and I've never stalled even once. I've never stalled once on the street. Even on my first day, when I got onto this motorcycle and went on the road for the first time, I have never stalled once. It is super difficult to stall this motorcycle. Now, onto the most shitty part of this bike. In my opinion, that is the seat. The seat is so freaking uncomfortable. It's like sitting on a wooden plank after 2 hours of riding. Even though the seat is complete crap, I don't recommend changing it out. Because most of the riders that get onto this bike will probably outgrow it in around 6 months. These bikes have a terrible mod resale value. So even if you put on a $400 settlement seat or whatever, the value of the bike will probably not even go up. Because people don't care about the mods. When people buy a bike, most of the people just want a stock bike that looks very clean. Onto the safety. If you jerk the throttle by accident, nothing would really happen, unless you're in between the first and third gear. When you're in between first and third gear, you might get some kind of a pull that might kind of throw you off balance. But anything after third gear, 4, 5, or 6, nothing will happen. When you go give it to full throttle, it just kind of goes, you know? There's the saying that goes something like, drop a gear and disappear. Well, with this bike, it goes something like, drop 4 gears and go a little bit faster. But let me warn you, when I say it doesn't accelerate quick, I don't mean it can't go fast. Which brings us to the next topic, the speed of the motorcycle. A lot of people say that 300cc motorcycles are not near enough power to have fun. People say you won't be able to go fast on the bike. You'll never get in trouble on it. It's so much more harder to get hurt on this bike. No, it's exactly the same as super sports. It can go way above the speed limit. The only time I would wish that this bike had more power is when you're passing other vehicles in front of you. I just wanted to have a little bit more ground when passing. It will make me feel so much more safer knowing that like I can easily pull the throttle and overtake the car in front of me. Now let's move on to the price and the reasons why you should buy this motorcycle compared to any other 300cc motorcycle. Well, first, this bike came out before every other 300cc motorcycle, which makes it the cheapest 300cc motorcycle you can get. I got this bike that had 6,000 kilometers on it for $3,600 without a single scratch on it. The reason being is they drop down in value pretty quickly after 3 to 4 years. When you're comparing this bike to Yamaha R3, Yamaha R3 only came out in 2015. So as of now, it's like 2.5 years old, which raises the price by a little bit. As well as you'll probably only keep this bike, as I said, for 6 months to a year. So there isn't really a point of getting a more expensive bike. This is a learner bike for most people. And in a year, you'll probably move on to something more powerful. Now you may be asking, maybe I should just get a 250 instead of a 300. And in my opinion, if you live in America, like Canada, or the United States, a 300 would be a much better choice. Because it will handle the highway with so much more ease than a 250. But let's say you're living in the UK or India, where the roads are super small and the gas prices are super expensive, then I would recommend the 250 because it gets way better gas mileage, it's fast enough for the roads in those countries, and it's much cheaper. Now, should you get this bike? In my opinion, yes. You should. In my opinion, there's only 2 choices that you'll probably have, and that's Yamaha R3 or Ninja 300, because they give you the biggest bang for the buck. As I said, this bike is super cheap, it's super friendly, you can feel pretty safe on it if you're not thrashing the throttle all day long. The bike is super light, and it looks the coolest. Yamaha R3 looks pretty good too. Make sure you check out my previous video of that, the GSX 250R. I'm sure when you watch that video and this video, you'll truly be able to understand the difference between a 250 and a 300. Thank you for watching, and thank you to all those people that subscribed to me from my previous video. It really means a lot to me.